to the American Slave is your 4th of July, spoken in Rochester, New York in 1852 by Frederick Douglass. The narrator, Chazz, of Cries from the Womb.
This 4th of July is yours, not mine. You may rejoice, I must mourn. Do you mean citizens to mock me by asking me to speak today? What to the American slave is your 4th of July? A day that reveals to him, more than all other days in the year, the gross injustice and cruelty to which he is the constant victim. To him, your celebration is a sham. Your boasted liberty, an unholy license, your national greatness swelling vanity. Your sounds of rejoicing are empty and heartless. Your denunciations of tyrants, brass-fronted impudence, your shouts of liberty and equality, hollow mockery, your prayers and hymns, your sermons and thanksgivings, with all your religious parade and solemnity, are to him mere bombast, fraud, deception, impiety, and hypocrisy. A thin vow to cover up crimes which would disgrace a nation of savages. There is not a nation on the earth guilty of practices more shocking and bloodier than are the people of the United States at this very hour. Go where you may, search where you will, roam through all the monarchies and suppression of the old world. Travel through South America, search out every abuse, and when you have found the last, lay your facts by the side of the everyday practices of this nation, and you will say, with me, that for revolting barbarity and shameless hypocrisy, America reigns without a rival.
What's going on, Chazz?
What's going on, brother? How you doing today?
Oh, I'm doing well. I want to start off by telling everybody that if you can hear us, please put in the comments that you're good tonight. We know we had some technical difficulties last week, but I think we have people already chiming in, so I think we're okay. This broadcast can be seen every Wednesday at 6 o'clock Central Standard Time. So what we're going to do is we're going to rewind the tape. We're going to go back and we're going to talk about responsibility in the African-American community, but then we're going to first talk about responsibility in the African-American life. This is part 2. So last week, that was basically a technical malfunction, but tonight we want to jump right back into it, Chazz, because I think we need to really take our time and talk about responsibility in the African-American life. Before we can talk about responsibility in the African-American community, we have to personally take responsibility. And I think that's where we need to start at. And would you agree with that?
Yes, I absolutely agree. And matter of fact, it's needed more now than ever, especially with all the stuff going on, like you said, social media and TV. Even in our own lives, I do believe that responsibility should be talked about deeply.
Okay, well, having said that, let's first talk about responsibility and what it is. And then we're going to invite those in because we have some people that wants to say hi to us. But first of all, I want you to start off by defining what we're talking about when we say responsibility.
Responsibility, doing what you are supposed to do. Now, I don't know if I said this, but I think I did last week. A lot of people want to get credit for this too. I see a lot of people in society and on social media. Oh, I pay my own bills, or I put my own gas in my car. You're supposed to do that. You're an adult, and you shouldn't be looking for brownie points or street credit or anything like that. You should be doing that because that's what you're supposed to do. And even acting like a citizen, a civil citizen, meaning not acting stupid in the streets, not causing ruckus, not causing fights. You should be able to do these things on your own without looking for some kind of applause.
I think so. That's true, because the word responsibility comes from the Latin word responsidere, which means to answer or to respond. And basically, when it says that, it's talking about we need to answer for our actions. And we also need to not only answer for our actions, but we need to be able to answer for what we do and what we don't do. And a lot of us are irresponsible. So we don't want people to be irresponsible. We want you to be responsible, because when you look at the African-American community or the African-American life, we see a lot of grown men and grown women acting like little children. And I said on last week, even in my own life, I have to brush up and not just talk about it, but I have to be responsible personally because I'm not talking about others unless I talk about myself. So we all have some growing to do, and we all have to grow up and be responsible because many of us are just a little bit, we're too old to be acting irresponsible as if we're little children. And I think that's something that we definitely want to say tonight.
Yeah, and I just take it a step further quickly. Like, all it takes is a small disagreement, because you see this even with teenagers and adults that's in their early 20s and 30s. They'll, get angry with. They'll be in a relationship. They'll get angry and they'll take a brick and they'll bust the windows out the car or flatten the tire, putting sugar in the tank. Things like this is very, very, very immature and childish. But once again, all it takes is a small miscommunication or anger, and we just lash out like that. And it's just ridiculous. As adults, we have to control that.
Yeah, and I think we also need to talk and teach our children the importance of responsibility, because a lot of times kids don't know what responsibility is because they haven't seen it demonstrated. Yeah. So when they grow up, we want them to be responsible, but because we didn't lay the blueprint, we didn't lay the pattern before them, then they don't know what to do because they don't see the person that's in front of them all these years to basically show them, hey, this is how you should be responsible. This is how you should live your life. And I think that's one of the things we want to delve into a little bit later on, because a lot of our children don't know the first thing about responsibility because we as parents and relatives, we haven't taught them, we haven't demonstrated, we haven't sat down and told them what that means when we talk about being responsible. And instead of us trying to, save the world and all of that, we have to be responsible to ourselves first.
Sister Barbara fires in here. She says, Hotep, we appreciate her for chiming in. Sister Mashonda fires in here. She says, hello. Yes, I can hear. Thank you. We appreciate that. And Sister Marie fires in behind her, and she's excited. She says, Hotep family. We appreciate her as well. Sister Barbara fires in behind her and says, adults need to be first accountable in order to become responsible. Yes, many grown-ups behave as elementary schoolers. That's absolutely true, and that kind of piggybacks off of what I said earlier. All it takes is for miscommunication or just anger, and like we take people's clothes, put bleach on it, and the list goes on and on. But she's absolutely right. We do have to take better responsibility as adults.
Yeah, and I want to piggyback off of these two words she used, because I see those words as interchangeable. In other words, she says adults need to be first accountable in order to be responsible. And so what I'm looking at is, to me, it's, and I get what she's saying, but when you are responsible, you are accountable. So, I mean, they go hand in hand. It's not either or. It's basically all in the same. Because, again, when a person is responsible, they're going to be accountable. When a person is accountable, they're going to be responsible. And so this is why we have to look at what she says and also talk about how many of us grown-ups, we behave as elementary schoolers, like little bitty children. And see, these are the kinds of discussions that a lot of us don't like to have. But when we sit down and just really think about how this will help us in our own lives, we'll see the benefit of having these types of discussions, because all of us need to grow up. And we definitely need to quit talking about it and then be about it.
Absolutely. Well said. Well said.
Now let's look at some reasons, Chazz, reasons that some of us, we won't take responsibility in our own lives. And then hopefully if we get around to it, we'll be able to talk about the community. But I think that's later on, because we stopped a week before last on number 10. So let's look at why a lot of us don't want to take responsibility.
11, instant gratification. Wanting quick rewards instead of focusing up on sometime long-term process. Absolutely. You see that a lot in this society. I mean, everybody wants the quick microwave. You put something in there real quick. They don't want to go through the pain and the grueling outcome that it takes to become successful, or just things in our day-to-day basis. And here's the thing: when you constantly are looking for a quick way out, you're not going to have patience. You're going to start lashing out. You're going to start feeling frustrated. And if you don't have the patience, then it's just basically chaos. And like you said, this instant gratification is something that it's not a bad thing, but when you constantly want it 24/7 and you don't want to put in the work, then you're asking for a recipe of disaster.
Your responsibility is about the long term. It's not about just doing it 1 or 2 times. See, instant gratification has basically destroyed the minds of most of us, because responsibility is a long-term process, as this note is saying. It takes time, and also even at that, we have to continue to be responsible. We can't be responsible for a season and then stop. And as we get into this broadcast, hopefully we'll get to it. We'll look at relationships and how that has destroyed many of us, because one person is responsible and one person is irresponsible. And then, we have issues because somebody wants to grow up and be an adult, and then somebody wants to be a child. And then you have these different conflicts. So again, instant gratification is not the way to be responsible.
Number 12, feeling overwhelmed. Having too much going on in one's life to focus on responsibility. And I think I said this last week, working a lot. When we're overwhelmed with all these hours at the job, we don't want to be bothered with our children. We want them to get up out of our hair. We don't really want to have time to sit and talk with them. We're frustrated. We're trying to pick up overtime. Don't really have the energy to do things in our day-to-day basis, as far as exercise and things like that. And when you're constantly overwhelmed, you're asking for problems, because here's the thing: you got so much stress on your plate, you got so much frustration on your plate. Responsibility is the last thing in your mind, because you're thinking, I got all this stuff to do. Me being responsible is basically not on my thought process right now.
That's beautiful what you said, Chazz. And I want to give verse 2. That was verse 1 you just gave. As I told you earlier last week, I want to start saying this a lot, because when a person says something that's profound and sagacious, I want to come back and add to it. But what you said was verse 1, and let me give them verse 2. Verse 2 is, a lot of us we just have too much going on. Let's be honest. We're doing some of the things that we shouldn't be doing. We always want to be in people's business. We always want to be in people's lives. We always want to tell people what to do. We always want to run to this place. We always want to run to that place. We always want to be the life of the party. We're always burning the candle at both ends. And so we can't focus on responsibility. And this is one of the downfalls that many of us have, because we're so busy, we're not thinking about responsibility because we're too busy. And I'm just going to use the word that a lot of our younger people use that I think is very fitting now. A lot of us are just messy, Chazz. We're messy. Yeah. And we're so messy, we're not interested in doing what is right. 40, 50, 60, 70, 80 years old, and we're not responsible. What happened to our lives all of those years that we're not responsible?
I don't know. I mean, and some of it is picked up on, and I'm not saying that this is an excuse. I'm just saying in general, normally it's picked up on whoever grew us up, meaning whoever we live with, whoever we hung around. Normally we pick up their behaviors, and 90% of the time, if the people that we saw that we were hanging around were acting like that, we just pick up their habits and we do the same thing. And it's not a good thing to be bragging about, because there's some who gloat over it about being irresponsible and, just doing silly things out in the street. It's a terrible spot to be in.
Yeah, really.
Brother Ray fires in here. What's going on, Ray? He says, good evening, Black Power. Appreciate him for logging in. Then he also fires in here. He says, instant gratification / feel good moments.
Yeah. I want to get on that, because he just hit the nail on the head as we talked about instant gratification a few minutes ago. But he's right. Instant gratification, it makes you feel good because you get what you want at the time. And the dopamine and the serotonin from the brain, it gives us this pleasure, and we like that. And so we want to always be instant gratified. But instant gratification makes us childish, you see. Yeah. Instant gratification, it makes us little boys and little girls, and it doesn't give us what we need for the long term. So he's definitely right.
Absolutely. Sister Barbara fires in behind Ray, and she says, you're describing yourself, Chazz. I just saying. And then she also says, well, once one becomes an adult, I disagree that it's a learned behavior. Okay, well, here's the thing. I'm not taking up for the people who do see that in the household or whatever, and they do, start acting up on what they see. I'm just saying it's a cop-out for most people to do that. And I'm not saying that it's right, but I believe most people do. They see this growing up. They see this with the friends that they're with, and they latch on with it. And I'm not saying that it's right, but I think that's the case in some people's perspective.
Right.
Number 13, immaturity. Acting in ways that childish, irresponsible, or not showing good judgment. Exactly. And I just said this a few minutes ago. These small arguments that we get into with these people that we love, like I said, we put bleach on people's clothes, start cutting people's tires, start blasting the windows out of the car. These are all ways of immaturity because they feel like I didn't get the response that I wanted from you. So this is how I'm going to act out or lash out. And these are very, very to me, irresponsible ways as an adult. We shouldn't be acting like that, or like I said, taking someone's phone, destroying it, kicking it, slamming it, just breaking it all up. To me, these are all irresponsible ways as well.
They are. But let's talk about this, Chazz. Let's talk about even in our discussion and in our dialogue. You know, it's hard to have a serious, mature conversation because many of our conversations is just childish. It's always about things that are mundane, and we all get silly. So let's not say that we should be so serious that we can't be silly every blue moon. But I mean, to sit down and have a serious discussion, a lot of us run from that. We shun serious discussions because we're so immature. And this is why we act like little children, because children don't want to hear the truth. When you tell children the truth a lot of times and you're being responsible, they close their, they stop their ears up. And so this is why a lot of us don't even show good judgment, because now we don't have anything to work with because we're irresponsible, see? And that's because we haven't listened, we haven't learned, we haven't demonstrated, we haven't even tried it. And this is why we have a lot of people that look like us and that don't look like us that are very irresponsible. And so to all those who are watching this tonight, tonight's broadcast is about taking responsibility in the African-American life. We want to save the world, and we should. We want to save our communities, and we should. But we have to be able to, first of all, be responsible in our own lives. And I don't see that happening in many of our lives, even in my own life. That's why we're saying we have to grow up. And a lot of us don't want to hear those two words. We need to grow up in our thinking, grow up in our behavior, grow up in just being people so that people can see and they can say, well, this is a man that's very mature. He takes care of his business. This woman takes care of her business. They're always doing things that's positive. They're always helping out. They're always speaking words that's going to uplift me and not to tear me down. They're always trying to move us forward as opposed to moving us backwards. And I think that's something that we definitely need to continue to talk about.
Absolutely. And Brother Ray fires in here. He says, too much has escaped me too.
Yeah, he's being honest about his life. See, this is a broadcast where we have to come clean. We have to come clean. You cannot hide in a broadcast like this. You can turn the light off. You can get behind the desk. You can get under the bed. You can do what you want to do, but we're going to turn the light on, and we're going to turn the light on not just on our brothers and sisters because we love them. Right. We're turning the lights on our own lives, and that's called self-deprecation, because a lot of us don't like to talk about what we need to do because we're too busy talking about other people. And as this brother said, too much has escaped him too. And this is what men do. Men come clean and women come clean about, hey, I need to grow up in these areas, but see, I need to be responsible in these areas. But a lot of us want to hide behind a cell phone and make people think, posting like we're all that, saying magical incantations, saying big words like, Uncle Jocelyn, saying all these spiritual connotations, saying all these Bible verses, saying all these Quranic surahs, so people can think we're better than we are, when Raymond is right. Too much escapism just to get away with it.
Yeah. Sister Barbara fires in behind him. She says, becoming a responsible adult calls for a change in our lives, especially in making decisions that are appropriate, supply our needs and sometimes our wants. I'll let you. Okay. And then he says, American Africans.
Yeah, he's saying that our concept of what we have done is we've brought into a system, and that system has basically destroyed us because many people are not responsible. But she says becoming a responsible adult calls for a change in our lives, especially in making decisions. And she's right, that are appropriate, because some of the decisions that we make are not appropriate because we're not responsible. So you see, we're putting the cart before the horse, because sometimes we supply our needs and sometimes our wants. And we shouldn't be that way when it comes to being responsible, because that's something that most of us should be willing to sit down and look at our own lives and be honest about where we are so that we can help ourselves.
Number 14, many of us have gotten in a rut, an indifferent habit of doing nothing, a routine of laziness. Absolutely. And I think to some extent we all get like that at times, for maybe a day or two where we're tired, we don't feel like being bothered, we don't feel like doing anything, we just frustrated, and we just say, you know what, I'm going to take this day off. But it gets to a point to where that day becomes weeks. Those weeks become months to where we're fed up. Things aren't going our way. Things are going left. Everything is going down the drain. Things are going south. People at our job are constantly pissing us off. All these things that get in our subconscious, and then we say, you know what? It isn't worth it. I'm tired of this. I'm full with this. I don't feel like being bothered with this. And we just throw our hands up.
That's so true, Chazz. You know, the thing of it is the rut that a lot of us have gotten into, we're not going to get out of it because we don't want to be responsible. See, we like words. We like to hear beautiful sayings, but we're really not the people that we think we are, because we know if we examine each of our lives, every one of us has a lot of growing up to do. But instead of us looking at ourselves and saying, hey, I need to be better when it comes to whatever the case may be, I need to be more responsible in this area, we sit back and we look at others, and it's like we don't see the hypocrisy in our own lives. And this is why we've gotten in this rut. And in other words, we don't do anything. So that nothingness has become a routine. And I want to put this next one up. And this is what I'm trying to say. I'm trying to say this right here.
No, many of us are stuck in the same pattern without progress of complaining and never doing anything to make our lives better, to be responsible. I'll let you take that one. I'll piggyback off of it.
Yeah, because I just said that and I'm saying it again. We complain. In other words, there are many things that we should complain about. Yeah. But a lot of us aren't going to do anything about it because a lot of the things we complain about, it has to do with our responsibility. So it's like, for example, I take myself for an example. I complained for many, many years about the public education in the United States of America. I griped, I murmured, I cried, I beat my chest. I did a lot of things about the school system isn't doing this, the school system isn't doing that. Well, a responsible person would start their own school. And so this is what I've done. Now, I still have a long way to go, but instead of me complaining all the time and not doing anything, so if the school system isn't doing what it's supposed to do, then as a responsible man, I should start my own so that I can give the students what they need instead of continuing to bellyache about it. And most of us are like that. We complain all the time so that we can't be responsible because it's easy to complain. And we complain. But when are we going to get off of our behinds and make a difference and be responsible? And not just in the public education system. That was an example. But in many of our lives, Chazz, in many of our lives, there's some stuff going on, man. And we just got to be honest about that.
And I've been complaining, too, in my own head. I'll get to Brother Ray's comment now. Just say this real quick. I've been complaining, too, because I've been on Indeed, constantly putting in applications. And it's always something. I get these emails. We've carefully reviewed your resume, but you don't qualify. So I'm putting in a couple, Indeed resumes per day. I had to step it up because I'm frustrated. I cannot seem to get a job to call me back that meets the requirements where I have the correct computer, they have the correct hours that I'm looking for, their pay is pretty good. I'm trying to pick up a second job, and every time you look around, I'm getting these emails, and I've been complaining, saying, well, when are these guys going to hire? No, maybe I need to step it up and put in maybe 15 to 20 applications per day, call these people back and see what they're talking about. That's just my own thing that I've been dealing with instead of complaining, but I have to actually step it up and go harder. Sister Barbara fires in here. She says, I too fell in those ruts, but it's about keep pushing forward. Absolutely. And that's what I said. We all have those moments to where for a day, we're just tired, we're fed up. But she's saying, I feel like this, but eventually I push forward. I don't stop there. I don't shut the blinds. I don't shut the curtains. I don't sleep all day. I may be like that for a moment, but I eventually keep pushing forward. And that's exactly where you want to be. So that's a pretty good comment that she made. I don't know if I got a chance to read Brother Ray's. He had a comment.
No, he said he had made a typo. The last statement he made was a typo. But we thank those for tuning in to Adults Only every Wednesday at 6 o'clock Central Standard Time. Tonight, we're talking about taking responsibility in the African-American life. And so this sister just wrote in, she says she too fall in those ruts, but it's about keep pushing forward. And this is what I'm trying to say to all of us, myself included. We've got to stop just complaining. We've got to be proactive. We have to be more responsible. And we always talk about our ancestors back in the day. We talk about all those greats. We talk about the great African kingdoms. We talk about the African cultures. We talk about the great civilizations. And all those civilizations are great, Chazz. But when you look at what they did and what we're doing, it's like night and day. Mm-hmm. See, they talked about it, but they were about it. See, they were responsible. So now they passed the ball to us and we fumbled the ball, because now taking the ball forward and moving it in the direction that our people need. What we do is we sit there and look back at them and talk about them and gloat about them, but we're not doing anything. And this is one of the, I guess this is an indictment that I'm having, and it's on myself too. This is an indictment we have on each other, because we don't want to keep pushing forward. We rather sit back and complain instead of saying, I can do something about my situation. And this is why people don't want to hear this.
Sister Barbara fires in here. She says, teach, big brother. Brother Ray fires in behind her. He says, too much reaction and little to no action. Absolutely. We can react all we want. We can say all these things, ooh and ah, and that's how you get it done. But you got to get off your behind and do it. You got to actually do something. You can't just sit back and do nothing. You have to actually get in the game and make it happen. So good comment from his brother as well.
Okay, I know you're going to want to talk about this, so I got to put this on the screen.
Okay. Number 15. Being responsible means admitting mistakes, owning up to our own faults. Absolutely. It's so easy for us to sit back and point the fingers at others. Oh, it was his fault. It was her fault. He was the reason why I acted this way, or she was the reason I acted that way. But no, you were a grown man or a grown woman. Even though they provoked you, they made you angry. You still are responsible for the way you respond, and especially if it becomes the violence or fights. Because a lot of us like to do that. Well, I wouldn't have fought him if he wouldn't have pressed my buttons. No, you could have ignored him. You could have walked away. A lot of us don't like to put the blame on ourselves. We're so quick to point the fingers at others because we feel like that takes the heat off of us.
That's so true. And I was laughing as you were talking, because I think about just life. And when I think about people, myself included, I never hear people say, you know what, that was my fault. I was very irresponsible. I'm too old to be acting like this. I haven't heard that. I don't think I've heard that in maybe 30 years.
Yeah.
It's normally the other way around. It was your fault. If you wouldn't have done what you did, I wouldn't have done what I had to do.
Yeah.
Saying, you know, I am too old to be cursing this older woman out or this older man out. That's my senior citizen. I respect them, and I'm going to, do some positive things, but it's always someone else's fault. And we don't like to say, I'm the one that should have been more responsible. And this is why we talk like this with passion, so that people can see this is healing. Yeah. Because we need it as a people. We need this badly. The African American community, if you're honest with yourself, you know, and I know that a lot of our problems has to do with being responsible. Yeah. Whether you're a politician, whether you're a preacher, whether you're an educator, I don't care what kind of job, position, or title one has. Whether you like I said, a politician, we're irresponsible, Chazz. Whether you're a parent, whether you're a student, whether you're a child, whether you're an auntie or uncle, whatever it is, we have to look at ourselves and see. This is why broadcasts like this, they don't get very much push, because no one is going to say, this is where I need to work in my own life because I'm irresponsible. They want to read these comments and make people think everything is great in their lives. They're sitting on top of the world when they're basically lower than a worm when you think of it.
And I'll take it a step further, especially with relationships. 90% of the time, and I don't watch these shows anymore, but it just dawned on me, like Steve Wilkos and Jerry Springer, when he would bring these guests on the stage, these women and men would act the fool. They would always say it was the other one's fault. He cheated or she cheated. And when you sit back and look at it, they would never say, you know what, Springer, you know what, Wilkos, I pushed his buttons or I was cheating too. It's always to the fact where they want these people on TV to make them think that they were perfect, they did no wrong, and it was always the other person's fault. Even I'll take them out of it. It's just in our day-to-day lives, people we know, whenever you talk to somebody on the phone, they have these relationship breakups, they always say it was the other person's fault. They never say anything that they did. And it would make me think that, wow, this person is perfect, because they don't say anything that they did. They always pointing the finger at the other, and that one kills me. Yeah. Brother Ray Fire's in here. He says, last week your show was buffering and I couldn't play it. We know. We're sorry about that. We deeply apologize. We appreciate you for coming back. We got that cleaned up last week. It was terrible. But I'm glad that you came back, Brother Ray, and you listening to us again. He also fires in here and says, the beauty of knowing you're wrong is knowing you can do better. Absolutely. Absolutely. And taking that accountability, saying in your mind, or even if you don't tell people that, you know in your heart when you screw somebody over, you know in your mind when you didn't do the right thing. So you say, you know what, I'm going to make it right. And that way to become better. So absolutely good comment.
Yeah, he's absolutely correct. And, you know, that's the thing again. And I just love people who are honest. You know, the hypocrite, the duplicity, you know, all the things, those kinds of things, Chazz, you know, I got to learn how to let people be who they are. But the hypocrisy is just, I boil when people sit around and act like they're holier than thou when they know they're irresponsible. They know they don't like people. They know they're not going to help their lives. They know the community is falling to pieces. They're not trying. They know they have a lot of growing to do, but they hide behind these different segments of life. They hide behind, like I say, they hide behind faith. They hide behind spirituality. They hide behind all their jobs. They hide behind their economics. You know, this is what they do, man. This is what they do. And yeah, like I said, man, I just appreciate people, like the brother said here. I aim to be correct and appreciate it when I'm corrected. You know, this is a beautiful thing because that shows you're responsible. Mm-hmm. See, because an irresponsible person, you better not correct them. You get a knot upside your head and get cussed out. You're gonna get a knot upside your head and get cussed out.
Brother Ray also finds it again. He says, when it comes to relationships going wrong, I blame myself because that empowers me. That's a good comment that you said. You are taking responsibility when things go wrong, but everybody's not like that, Ray. Like I mentioned earlier, a lot of people are so quick to point the finger at the other person, and they never say anything that they done wrong. It's always the other woman's fault or that man's fault or however it's going out. But that's good that you said that.
I'm gonna push back on Brother Ray on this one, and it's all in love. When it comes to relationships going wrong, I ain't gonna blame myself. If I didn't do it, I'm not gonna do that. I mean, and that's a beautiful thing. He's basically saying in love that he wants to get to the bottom of it. But you know, if I didn't do it, I'm not gonna lay my head on the chopping block.
Yeah, well said. Sister Barbara Fire is saying behind him and says, what does duplicity mean?
Duplicity means being two-faced, talking out the side of your neck. Saying one thing with one person and then saying something about another person. Like say Chazz and I are talking now and I'm all happy and we're having fun and I'm just dealing with this. And as soon as I get off this broadcast, I get on the phone and I say, you know that Chazz, that's a rotten son of a gun. I can't stand Chazz. He's no good. I don't ever want to see him again. And then next week we're doing a broadcast again. And then I get on the phone again and say, man, I don't like doing these broadcasts because Chazz, you know, he just rubs me the wrong way. That's being a hypocrite. And all of us should put this word in our vocabulary because a lot of us are duplicitous. We're just two-faced. That's as simple as I can get it. It's just being two-faced.
Okay. Brother Ray fires in behind her and says, only a fool knows it all. Yeah. And he also says, duplicity is being oxymoron. Oxymoronic. I want to go back to this other one. Yeah, a lot of us think we know it all. Just in general, like if you ask people questions, everybody has solutions to everything. Everybody's perfect. And some may say, well, you talking about yourself because we sit on this broadcast. We have a lot of solutions and we try to do the best that we can. But a lot of people think that they know it all. And in fact, when you say, you know what, I did some research that isn't good or that was inaccurate, they get angry at you. And nobody knows how to say, you know what, I'm sorry, brother. I'm sorry, sister. I do not know. Everybody knows everything now. And like you said, only a fool knows everything.
And I'm going to take this one. He says duplicity is being oxymoronic. In other words, he's saying two things you're saying two things. You can't say two things. It's hot and it's cold. See, that's an oxymoron. But what I'm trying to get to is this. It's hard to teach an irresponsible person. It's hard to have a conversation with an irresponsible person because the irresponsible person don't care about their responsibility. They don't care about learning or doing what's right when it comes to knowledge because, as we're saying, they think they know it all. And Raymond just said this, like he's saying, it's right on, because that's what we said back in the day. Right on, brother. Right on, sister. In other words, we're agreeing with the person because he knows, and I know, and you know, and all of us know this watching this broadcast, that we have a lot of work to do in our lives first. And this is why a lot of us are older in numbers, but in reality, we're probably the size of our shoes. We may act like we're 12, 13, or 14, and that's really sad, Chazz. It really is.
Yeah. Number 16, responsibility demands honesty, effort, willingness, and courage. Yeah, absolutely. Go ahead. I'll let you take it.
That's a lot. That's a lot. It demands honesty. Can I just put it flat out about how a lot of irresponsible people are just liars?
Come on.
That's irresponsible when you're a liar. You have to be honest. There's no need to lie like that. And then effort. Some of us don't even try. We know that we have issues, but we don't try because, again, our brains have done something to us over the years where it has calcified. It's gotten so hard. We don't want to try the effort. We're not willing, and we're lacking courage. So basically, what it's saying is, you're a weak person.
Wow. Come on, bro.
If we're not willing to do what we're supposed to do, that's a sign of weakness. Because if you are responsible, you wouldn't be weak. And this is why many people don't want to have this discussion.
Yeah, and like you said, we got to be honest. We got to tell the truth. That's first and foremost. Telling the truth about it. It's no reason to lie. You shouldn't have to lie about anything because it makes people really not want to trust you. And like you said, the effort. I think we put efforts in the things that we really want to do, but the things that we don't feel are important or the things that we don't want to do, we just, sit back and do nothing. But like you said, we have to put effort in this stuff because it's not going to get done itself. And in fact, sometimes you got to kick it up a notch. You put in a little effort, but sometimes you got to go up a notch to volume 5 or 7 to get this thing in order. The next one says, in many relationships, there's no responsibility because poor communication, not talking honestly about feelings, holding all that stuff in. And I keep going back to the relationship thing because that's the truth. Somebody may have come in and said something on accident. They didn't mean to say this. And the other person holds that in. And then they wait until a week later and they have a big blow up on the other person. They say, well, last week you said this, and that. Instead of addressing it right then and there, holding all that anger in, being frustrated, it's just not really a good spot to be in. And once again, instead of being man or woman enough to address it right then and there, we want to hold it in and then explode later, which I think is cowardly.
Chazz, many people have gotten hurt for this right here. Poor communication. In other words, not talking honestly in a relationship. How do you feel about this? Oh, it's okay. It's all right. And as soon as we get intoxicated or as soon as we get, angry, then we explode because we really didn't mean to say that. And we weren't honest. So now we're making it. It's like it's a different mindset now. At first, we said everything was okay. Now it's not okay. See? And now we've been holding that in for so long. And now we explode because we're not being honest. We don't know how to tell people. Did that anger you? Yeah, it really did. I don't like it when this happens, or let's talk about how we can work through this. But they say, did that anger you? Oh, no, I'm okay with it. I'm okay. And then after it happens a few more times, I told you. It's like, but you didn't you didn't say that though. See, you held it in and you exploded. And that's what happens to many of us. And that's why a lot of us are not responsible.
Brother Ray Fires in here. He says, I see someone trying to do right and mess up. To me, they are something to work with. Absolutely. When you see someone that's trying to do better and they're constantly or on an accident mess up, that's something you can work with. And that is spot on because a lot of us don't want to do that. we're not doing anything at all. So he's saying basically, I see your effort, I appreciate your effort, and if you're doing something wrong, I can at least work with that instead of not putting in any work or any effort at all, and sitting back complaining and doing nothing.
And that's what I want to put up next for him, because he hit the nail again right on the head, because this is the next slide.
Lack of effort, taking the relationship for granted instead of working on oneself, each person. Yeah, I mean, and we all do that. Like I said, we take each other for granted. We know that certain things are going to be done on a certain day, and I'll take it even a step further. And I'm not making fun of anyone, and I promise you I'm not. But when one person, they got in this relationship, they were normal, they were healthy, they were skinny, they were taking care of themselves, or even in marriage, then throughout the years, they get bigger and bigger and bigger. And then the person says, you know what? Well, I don't want you to exercise or anything like that. They let themselves go because they say, you know what? In my book, I don't feel like you're worthy enough to keep myself up for. I don't think that you're important enough to keep myself going for. So you better accept me like this. And once again, this is no shot at anyone that's heavy set or big, heavy set. This is just what happens in relationships. I see it on YouTube a lot where these men and women are complaining and saying that, well, you stop cooking around the house now. You're not hugging me when I come home now. You're not doing any of these things. So now you took that person for granted for years, and now it's just going to the pits.
That's irresponsible what you just said, Chazz. You're right. That's an irresponsible person who does that. See, because as you mentioned, you know, we take things for granted. We take each other for granted. We don't even look at people anymore the way we used to. We're not interested in working on ourselves. And this is why the divorce rate in the United States of America and breaking up is cataclysmic all over the world, because now it's like we've gotten comfortable, and we, like B says, there's a lack of effort. In other words, I'm not even going to try anymore. And then you find things going south, and before you know it, here you either getting in fisticuffs, or you're getting cursed out, or you're getting shouted at, and now it's like the respect is gone. So we have to take responsibility in our own lives before we can save the world.
Letter C, unresolved conflicts, hanging on to grudges instead of working on oneself to get through the tough times. And that's just it. I'm going to take this last part. We don't want to go through the tough times. We want everything to be perfect. We want to live like the Kardashians, mansions, money, shopping every day. But when people get sick or have to go to the hospital or have to have these terrible things happen to them, we don't want to stick through that. Or a man or a woman loses their job. We don't want to say, you know what? I know it's tough right now. I know the market. I'm going to stick through you. No, we leave that person. We get up and go. It's too hard. It's too hot. We don't have the patience for it. We get up and go. And that's what burns me up about this society, because loyalty used to be a thing where people would stick through and through tough times. But now, and I'm just going to, like I said, highlight this last part. We don't want to stick around through tough times. When things get hot, we got to go. We got to run. We got to escape. Instead of saying, it's not that bad, even though it may take you a few months to get back on your feet. I'm going to stick this thing out and help you get back on your feet. But no, when things get hot and heavy, we got to go. We looking to get our clothes and run out the door.
Well, let me dissect the first part. Since you got the last part, let me dissect the first part. Hanging on to grudges. We have become cowards. We become cowards because a coward is not going to tell you what's going on. A coward is irresponsible because a coward will hold on to those grudges, and they will just let those grudges fester. They will just fester. And then what happens is, because they hung on to those grudges for a long time, they become callous. They become cold. They become hard. And all it is all these years, we've been holding on to something that we should have gotten out, Chazz. And because of irresponsibility, because a responsible person is going to work through that. They're going to tell you, I'm not going to hold on to something that you did. And then when you ask me, hey, what's going on? Nothing. But yet in my heart, I won't let it go. And some of us die like that. And that's the sad part about these unresolved conflicts. We hang on to these grudges instead of working on ourselves to get through the tough times. And you know what happens after that? All hell breaks loose.
Yeah. And we have to start being forgiving, letting things go, like you said, on these grudges. Even though they happen, we have to forgive others, because it's just something that takes the stress off of us. And we shouldn't be walking around holding on grudges for years and years. Sister Barbara chimes in. She said, get off my toes, big brother. Okay, being honest. And then she also fires in here again. She says, I can definitely work on my communication skills, especially angry outbursts occasionally. But some people just really work my last nerve. I'm a work in progress, much better than how I used to be. Okay. Well, she's
Yeah.
saying that she's admitting her faults, and she's saying that I'm not perfect. I'm trying to work on these things that get on my nerves. But she says she's a work in progress. She's putting in the work. She's trying to come up with different ways and solutions to get these things figured out instead of, like she said, always outbursts of anger. So we appreciate her.
I want to keep that in my mind. I'm gonna keep this comment in my memory bank, because if 10 years from now, if we see that same comment, then something is wrong, because after 10 years, there should be some kind of change. I'm not saying everything should be perfect, but there should be some kind of comment that says, hey, people still get on my last nerve, but I'm able to deal with them because I'm able to deal with myself. See, so that's honest. So that's pretty good right there.
Brother Ray fires in here. He says taking people for granted is depending on them. That has gone wrong. Yeah, you can depend, especially if it's bills. You should be able to depend on a person to pay certain bills and things like that. We get that. But when you depend on them, when you're taking them for granted, for example, every Wednesday this person is going to take you out to Applebee's or IHOP or Chili's or something like that. You're taking that person for granted because you're just assuming that, Lord and behold, he gets in a car accident or something happens, or he just says, you know what, I'm not feeling like it. Then you explode. So he's saying we have to stop. We got to stop depending on people to do these things. Is basically what he's getting at.
And he's right. That's an irresponsible person to depend on somebody to do everything that we know that we should be doing ourselves. So that's an irresponsible person.
He also fires in here again. He says, I ain't going to lie. I do hold grudges, but I just cut them loose. Out of sight, out of mind. Yeah, okay. He's being honest. He's being honest. He's saying that he holds on to them, but it's not going to be to the fact that where he's chasing them around or following them around to fight them at a park or fight them in a grocery store. He said, okay, you did this to me a few times. I've forgiven you, but it's time for me and you to cut ties. Right. So that's at least you're handling it the responsible way instead of provoking violence. Letter D. Fear of change. Avoiding responsibility because one doesn't want to change. Absolutely. We hear that a lot. We bump into our old school classmates or our old relatives we haven't seen in a while, and the first thing that come out of our mouth, bro, you ain't gonna never change, because we're known for doing certain things. We're known for acting out. We're known for, causing these things. And we don't want to change because, like it says clearly on the screen, we don't want responsibility. In fact, there's some people, and I'm not going to say in particular any names, they're known for always complaining. They're known for always being in these spots to where they're saying, woe is me, the world is out to get me. But they like that attention that it brings because people always say, oh, what's wrong? What's wrong? Are you okay? Are things getting better? So we like being like that because it gives us attention instead of actually changing, becoming better people.
What I'm about to say now, Chazz, I'm finna lose probably 90% of those who know me, those who like me. They're not going to like me after I say this, but I'm not going to hold it in any longer.
Uh-oh.
Fear of change, avoiding responsibility because one doesn't want to. Now, I'm going to take my time and say this, but I'm not going to be very long-winded. Here it is. Some of us that have children, African-American men and African-American women, I'm talking about the little children, not the grown adults that are grown and they're old enough now to do what they need to do on their own. Okay. But a lot of us, we're not taking care of our children. And I don't care whether people like me or dislike me. That's avoiding responsibility. And I'm not talking about giving them money. I'm not talking about paying child support, because if you don't have a job, that's different. I know what the system does. So don't get on here and put on comments taking up for people who won't pick up a damn, or who won't pick up a phone. Who won't pick up a phone, child, who won't pick up a phone and call their son or their daughter, their little kid, or they won't make sure that they do things with them, whether they pick them up, go to the park, who won't teach them about life. These are the things I'm saying that we're avoiding responsibility to the uncles and aunts who won't talk to their nieces and nephews, who just sit back. That's avoiding responsibility. It's not just about the parents or those who are what we call those who are wayward, they're not in these kids' lives. we got to stop this. And I don't think maybe we need to do a broadcast about that, because a lot of us men and a lot of the women, we have avoided our responsibility because the bottom line is we don't want to change. So don't tell me you don't have any money, because it ain't about money all the time. It's about being there for these kids, going to their games if they're playing some type of sport, or just coming to their lives and taking them with you, teaching them how to respect each other. That's what I'm talking about. And this is why a lot of us don't want to do that, because we're avoiding our responsibility.
That's sad. Not you. I'm saying the people who have that mentality to where they feel like they were man or woman enough to have these kids, and they don't want to, pick them up after school and take them out to Dairy Queen, things like that. That's sad. And some of us will cuss you out when you say, you know what, bro, you need to start taking care of your son or daughter. Oh, you MF, who you think you are? You don't tell me what to do. I'm grown and stuff like that. And it's like, well, you're a man or woman enough to have but don't want to do it. And then I'll take it a step further. And let me be clear here. I don't condone rape. The only time I believe in what you call abortion is if a woman is going to the store and, some guys come out of some bushes. That's rare, though, and she gets put in a truck and then they take her and rape her. But that's on movies, normally. You don't really see that. But the men and women who have these kids to say, you know what? I don't want that baby no more. That's low. That is a low. That's saying you don't want the responsibility. You know that you got to have this son or daughter now, and you saying, before I pay to take care of this daughter or son, I'd rather kill it. And the women are going along with it too. Now that is low. That's low. Letter E, imbalance in effort. One partner is responsible, gives more, while the others give less, and it's irresponsible. Now I gotta say, and I normally don't talk about these relationships, but I have to say this too. A lot of people nowadays in society, they have these things about their saying they're not doing 50-50 in relationships. They want one person to pay all the bills while the other person sits at home on Facebook and Instagram and all these apps all day. They don't want to take responsibility. So you know what? We both need to work. We both need to get up and hustle. One person is not responsible while the other person does. And like I said, lo and behold, even if the woman is doing the heavy lifting, the man is sitting at home smoking dope all day. It goes both ways. That's what's going on in society now. Nobody wants to be man and woman enough and go 50-50. Everybody's saying it's either all or nothing. You pay everything, or if you're not, don't talk to me. That's what's going on, and I think that's irresponsible as well, where they're putting too much pressure on one person.
Many people have broken up. Many people have gotten divorces, and many people have gone astray, even though they're still together, because one partner is giving everything and the other person is sitting around playing video games, playing sports on the PlayStation or something, and this is sad, man. But we got to be more responsible, man.
We do. Note 1. Before communities can get better, each of our lives must be improved first. I'll let you take that when I'm going to swig this real quick.
Yeah, because a lot of us want to talk about our communities, and we should, though, Chazz. The African-American community need to do this. The African-American community ain't about that. The African-American community need to do this. And so we get on social media, and everybody think we this great guru because we're saying all the things that but we gotta be able to improve our own lives, see, because if you look at our own lives, you're going to find out that a lot of us, we talk a lot, we ain't gonna bust a grape. We're so irresponsible, but we know the rhetoric, we know what to say, we know how to make people feel good, but the bottom line is, before we can save anybody, we have to be able to take care of our own selves.
Absolutely. And it's an illustration. When people look at our lives, they should, especially when you're trying to help the community, they should say, I trust this brother or I trust this sister. They are responsible. So what they're telling me in this community, it must hold some weight because I can see the evidence in their own lives instead of, like you said, not doing anything at all. Number 2, when we take responsibility for our own growth, we must set the example of those around us. Now, I literally just said that before I had the little hiccup. We have to take responsibility. Especially for the people for around us, setting the example, showing them, you know what, this is what an adult does. I don't have to have people putting pressure on me. I'm going to get up and do this. I'm going to get up and do that because it's the right thing to do. I'm not looking for accolades. I'm not looking for awards. I'm not looking for anything special. I'm just going to do this because this is the right thing to do. And you're going to see maturity and growth throughout the years and throughout the time. That's what responsibility is.
A lot of our kids, man, when they grow up, they cannot say that they've seen us responsible. They can say they've seen us irresponsible. They can say they've seen us on the weekends acting like fools. They can say they've seen us act like buffoons and clowns and gestures. But the bottom line is we have to take responsibility. So that's one of the things that our kids have a problem with. It's like they never saw the example, Chazz. And see, we want them to be a certain way when they get older, but they done seen more dope smoked, they've seen more alcohol drink, they've heard more vulgarity in our own homes, man. And then we don't teach them responsibility. And then when they get older, they stray away, and we want to know, where did I go wrong with that child? Well, we never did teach them and set the example for them so that they could get the right idea of what it means to be responsible.
Note 3, to improve on the individual self, our knowledge should line up with our maturity. Yeah, exactly. We live and we learn, we make mistakes. And throughout the years, that knowledge that we learned through those mistakes should line up with our maturity, meaning we failed in this area, we did some research, we found or got some advice from an elder or older adult, and now that should be mature in us instead of every year we keep getting arrested for drunken and driving. We keep getting arrested, for fighting at these nightclubs and stuff like that. These things should keep happening. After one point, that knowledge to say, you know what, it's not worth me getting locked up in the system. It's not worth me, spending time behind bars. I'm going to improve myself with the knowledge that I've gained throughout the years.
Let me give you the second stanza on that, since I'm in the verses now. The second verse to what you just said is this. A lot of us, our knowledge should line up with our maturity. In other words, we know a lot. Okay. We know, again, I've always said this, but we know a lot about the universe. We know about the solar system. We know that the Andromeda galaxy is our next door neighbor. We know about Stephenson 218, which is the brightest star that's ever seen with the naked eye. We know about all of these things. We just know a lot about, science, math, astronomy, astrology. We know a lot about, language arts. We know everything. But the bottom line is we're immature. See, we talk a good game, but we're not really doing anything to show that we are mature. And this is a problem, and a lot of us don't want to face it, but that's where we are. We're out of notes because we're done, but we have a couple of comments, so we can ride this thing on off into the sunset, Chazz. So let's talk about the two comments we have.
Brother Ray fires in here. He says cognitive dissonance.
Yeah, and he's basically talking about things we've been taught as kids. We know a lot of that stuff is not true, but we hang on to it. We stay to it, just like the Stockholm syndrome. We love the things that are bad for us because we don't know what's good for us.
Wow. And then Brother Ray fires in here. He says if a woman marries a poor man, she cannot be his housewife.
Really crazy.
I mean, like I said, with these relationships and stuff, man, it's getting sickening. Not with Brother Ray said, I'm just saying in general. It's just so lopsided. It's one side wants everything, and the other side is not really willing to put up anything. So, but like you said, if a poor man gets married, I guess these women are not trying to do anything guess around the house unless he has so much money, which is sickening as well.
Yeah. I'd like to thank everybody for tuning in to this broadcast tonight. The broadcast tonight has been about taking responsibility in the African American life. This was part 2. Again, I don't know what else we can do other than to say that, hey, we're all in this boat together. Yeah. We all have a lot of growing up to do. We all are irresponsible in some areas. Some are in more than others. But we just want you to know that this broadcast is here for you. This broadcast is to help you. This broadcast is to show you that we love you and that we talk about subjects that a lot of people don't like to talk about because a lot of us are immature and we don't want that to be the case. We want us all to grow up. We want us all to thrive. We want us all to be the mature adults that we should be. Because we know that a lot of us, we're just too old to be acting the way we act. And instead of wanting to save the world and, just, do everything that makes people think that we're these knights in shining armor, we want you to know that we got to work on ourselves. we got to take care of ourselves. We have to, and when I say take care of ourselves, that means we have to be more responsible. And that's all of us. That's not just some of us. So
Yeah.
I thank you for tuning in to this broadcast. I'll let Chazz have the last words. We do have a comment. And Newman says this here: the beauty of knowing you are wrong. I'm sorry, that was one he did earlier. He's Barbara. She says great respect. And Sister Shana says Shimotep Rose, she's wishing us peace. And Shimotep back to her. Chazz, I'll let you take it away. Then after you're done, I'll play I guess there was a deal that you did talking about the 4th of July that Frederick Douglass said in Rochester, New York, that we came on to. So I want everybody to kind of listen to that. But Chazz, go ahead and just take us home, man, because this is something that we definitely needed to talk about responsibly.
I appreciate everybody that logged in today to take this time. We apologize for last week, but you guys stuck it out with us and said, you know what? They made a mistake. We're going to come back and listen to what these brothers have to say. So we appreciate you guys. But tonight's broadcast was a good information. It was about round 2 of responsibility. Some of the things that we've been taught throughout our lives have been a lie. They aren't accurate. So we have to get responsible and find the research and say, you know what? I'm not responsible in certain areas. I'm going to try my best to improve this, and not always pointing the finger at others, always saying that the other person is wrong, not wanting to take any accountability, not really wanting to put in any work, not wanting to put in any effort. You got to have 50-50 here, what I'm saying. It's got to be a give and take. You can't always expect things to go your way, and then when they don't, you're just angry and pouting, and you're not doing anything else to try to improve. That was pretty much all I had to say about that one. And once again, I appreciate you for having me on, and I appreciate you guys for chiming back in with us once again after that rough week last week.
All right, Chazz. So we'll see you all next week, and please listen to these last words that Chazz gives us on something we did a few years ago, but it's talking about 4th of July, as Frederick Douglass was asked to speak to some people in Rochester, New York, in the 1800s, and this is what he said about the 4th of July. Other than that, we'll see you all next week. Stand by. It's coming up now.
Okay. Take care, everybody.
What to the American slave is your 4th of July? Spoken in Rochester, New York in 1852 by Frederick Douglass. The narrator, Chazz, of Cries from the Womb.
This 4th of July is yours, not mine. You may rejoice, I must mourn. Do you mean citizens to mock me by asking me to speak today? What to the American slave is your 4th of July? A day that reveals to him more than all other days in the year the gross injustice and cruelty to which he is the constant victim. To him, your celebration is a sham. Your boasted liberty, an unholy license. Your national greatness, swelling vanity. Your sounds of rejoicing are empty and heartless. Your denunciations of tyrants, brass-fronted impudence. Your shouts of liberty and equality, hollow mockery. Your prayers and hymns. Your sermons and thanksgivings, with all your religious parade and solemnity, are to him mere bombast, fraud, deception, impiety, and hypocrisy. A thin vow to cover up crimes which would disgrace a nation of savages. There is not a nation on the earth guilty of practices more shocking and bloodier than are the people of the United States at this very hour. Go where you may, search where you will, roam through all the monarchies and suppression of the old world. Travel through South America, search out every abuse, and when you have found the last, lay your facts by the side of the everyday practices of this nation, and you will say, with me, that for revolting barbarity and shameless hypocrisy, America reigns without a rival.